like this. So we have the intro, we have the video, and then of course we have the audio soundtrack. Now, if we take a look down here, I'm going to move this up a little bit. We have tracks. So most, if all, video editors will have tracks. So these are basically different layers. If kind of an analogy here, if you think of Adobe Photoshop, you have different layers, so different tracks in this case. So if you listen to music, for example, it could be made up of different tracks. It could be made up of the person's voice. It could be made up of somebody's audio soundtrack. It could be made up of something else, right? Because we're dealing with both audio and visual, we also have visual tracks as well. So that's kind of a brief description of how things work. So with Camtasia, I like it. All I have to do is drag it in here. And of course, it's going to ask you for your editing dimensions. Because it's 1280 by 720, I typically choose the same as the video file. So let's say, for example, if the video file is 640 by 360, then you're going to want to choose that or enter that information here. The best that you can stick with the same dimensions of the file, the better. Otherwise, it's going to squeeze the file, it's going to distort it, and it's not going to look right. So most video courses with PLR should come with the 1280 by 720, and that's HD quality. So in this case, I'm going to do 1280 by 720, press OK, and then I'm good to go. So up at the top right hand corner here, this is the screen. So this allows me to see what is actually going on, right? So if we were to click play, so it says make your video stand out. All right. So then next, what I want to do is I want to add this video file here and add it here. So the nice thing about Camtasia, I don't know if you noticed that yellow line. That's a guideline to tell me that it's close or it's touching the other video. And that's nice to have, especially if you're moving it over and you don't know exactly where to go. It just locks in. And that's why I like Camtasia. Now up at the top here, this is zoom out and this is zoom in. So what this allows you to do is see the audio waves here. So if you wanted to get close and you're like, okay, I want to lower the sound, then I could select the clip. So this is the intro, click audio, and then I can lower the sound. Click play. Because sometimes, just because this level here is right here, and this one here is here, even though the levels might be the same, it does not mean that the audio loudness is going to be the same. The volume is going to be different. So from what I can hear, the volume here is definitely louder than the volume down here. So you want to adjust it to your headphones to see which one actually, everything is even and level. So we could do that, or we could just totally remove this. So if we were to use let's say, for example, the audio soundtrack here, I could say, well, I don't really need the audio here. I just want the intro logo to come in. So if that's the case, you click audio, select this. And if you move this over here, and this little green thing allows you to move it over here, so you can select. So the left-hand side is the green, the right-hand side is the red. And I can click on silence like that, and it removes the audio. So this thing right here allows me to select things. And I use this all the time to edit videos. So now we click play, and there's no sound. Now we can also add transitions. So with Camtasia, the newer versions allow you to add more transitions, but see how it kind of just jumped from here to here. and it was very abrupt. So what you can do here is you're going to add a transition like a fade. So you can grab the fade here and drag it in between both of these. So now when you click play, it fades in. Now, in my opinion, fades are fine. Glows are okay. Let's see. But the things that I would probably avoid and recommend avoid using are things like the cube rotate, because it looks really old school like that. So it really depends on your audience, but at the end of the day, simple is better than making it look too fancy. If it looks too fancy, it looks kind of salesy, and because of the rise of skepticism and all that, you want to keep it simple. All right. So if you want to add this to the ending, and you can either drag and drop it, we'll minimize it here. So there's two ways of doing this. You could either drag the logo to the end and move it over here to snap it in place. But since we made the changes before, what I could do is instead of doing that, I could duplicate from what's over here. So I could select that, right click, copy, and then go over here, put my cursor over here, right click, paste. Like that. So I actually click Control V for paste. And of course we can add either a fade or a glow. Like that. And that's really how easy it is. Now, let's say, for example, that you want to add title screens. So we talked briefly about that in the previous videos. So let's go through here. So this video right here talks about how to create a profitable authority blog. And of course, we got video 1 introduction. So if I wanted to insert a title screen, let's say, for example, I go to videos or even Revio or Video Hive or whatever you go to, you create the title screen and then you go to the area that you want to place that screen. So if we're looking here, we want to find an area that isn't moving. So if you notice that is zoomed in here. So see how it stopped? So that's our opportunity to insert something. So we notice that it goes in and it stops there. So from this point all the way to this point here, that's where we could enter our title screen. Now, what you want to do is split this track. So in order to do that, we have to select the position and then click this here. So that's split. So we splitted it. If you notice, there's a split between the two. Now, how do you insert that in there? Well, you can, let's say, for example, this video here is a title screen. I don't have one, but we'll drag one over here. So that's a nice thing. You don't have to do everything on track 1. That said, if, of course, you can add things like call outs and other elements as well. But because this is a title screen, we do need to move things around. So I'm going to select all of this here. I'm going to move it to the right. And I'm going to take this and then insert it here. Make sure it's yellow. We're going to select this whole thing here and then move it over until it's yellow. And we know it's locked together from there. So now we know we got the intro here. We've got a little bit talking. And then, of course, we got the title screen. And we move on and on and on. So that's really how easy it is. You can do this with any other video editor. But from what I have faced over the years, I found that this video editor is the easiest. Now, let's say, for example, that you want to add a soundtrack and you want to make sure that this soundtrack does not overpower your voice or the voice on the video course. So what you do is drag the soundtrack up at the top here, down here. You need to make sure that the soundtrack is all the way to the left. And then after that, what we need to do is lower the sound. So right now it's way too loud. So we need to select this here, click on audio, and then now we can lower the sound. So you can either lower the sound up here, volume down, but that takes too long. But we can use that later, but we can lower the sound by clicking this and moving it down. Now, one thing to note is that you're going to want to probably lock this track. When you're editing something else like a soundtrack, you have the potential of ruining this track here, maybe actually deleting something. So the best way to do things is to lock that track. So if you see the little lock here, it's open lock now, it's locked now. Lock basically means I can't do anything to it. So now when I click on it, I can't move it around, right? So if I were to let's say select this and then click delete, it'll delete this, but it won't delete the lock track. So now obviously I did not want to do that. So I'm going to click edit, undo, like so. And I'm going to quickly listen to it. So it really comes down to your hearing. If you listen to the voice and it's way too low, you can of course increase it. But you always want to make sure that the soundtrack is lower. And you really can't tell by just looking at the visual wave length or wave height. So what you need to do is listen to it and then click volume down. Sometimes you'll have to click it 10 times and then listen again. And it's like, okay, that's too soft. Click it up and all that. It's better to have the voice of the video chorus louder than the actual soundtrack. Even though the soundtrack can change moods and emotions and all that, if the voice is softer than the soundtrack, people are going to get pissed off, they're going to get annoyed, and they're going to do a refund. So just a little bit word of the wise there. This has happened before, and I've seen it happen as well, and it's not something that you want to do. Now, you're not done yet. You'll notice that the audio soundtrack is, so this one's about 4 minutes, 40 seconds. This one's about 4 minutes, 10 seconds. So how do we get rid of this? So what you need to do is just move this over. And you see that yellow line, it tells us, okay, that's the end. So we click on the red here, we move over and click delete, or you can do right click and delete. So now we look at it and we're like, okay, those two line up with each other because we don't want it all the way out here. If it's all the way out here, it'll just be a black screen with music and people are going to be like, well, what in the world? And they're going to put the unprofessionalism of the video on your brand. So believe it or not, people will judge your brand based on the video that you sell. So that's why I said earlier on, you need to be careful on what you put your name on and make sure that you go through the video course and you feel passionate about it. If you feel passionate about it, somebody's going to say something and you can talk about the video, right? And that way you're aware. All right, so that's how easy it was to literally create a project. So obviously click save when you're done. So I'm going to pause this video and actually just create 2 different projects, and I'm going to show you how to render in bulk in the next video.